let us travel virtually to the land of the Queen as PICQS APC Talks channel or patch feature the APC story of our special guest, Engineer Michelle Miranda. Join our hosts, AJ Paredes and Joan Urbuda from Singapore and Abu Dhabi as we unravel how Michelle has nailed her APC together with her postgraduate diploma in surveying while acing her degree in motherhood together with her recent promotion as Regional Director for Faithful and Gould in London. All these and more on Saturday, 26 June, 3 p.m. Manila time, 11 a.m. Dubai, 8 a.m. London. See you!
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone. I am Arlene Joy Paredes, AJ, current president of PICQS Singapore chapter, and I am delighted and excited to be your host once again for our fifth session of Patch. Okay, so Patch is PICQS APC Talks channel, and we aim to provide overviews about the Chartered and Certified Professionals APC journey, PICQS structured trainings, and every quantity surveyor's road to becoming QS professionals and maximize their career potential. So for those who are not so familiar with PICQS, Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors is an all-Filipino QS organization with a global reach. In a span of nearly a decade, PICQS has formed 12 chapters around the globe in Philippines, UK, UAE, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, KSA, North America, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and our most recent form chapter, BIM Indochina. Okay, our members are mostly QS trained engineers, architects, and other allied profession practicing the quantity surveying globally, and we have structured trainings to patch up the required competencies towards exponential career growth. My co host for this afternoon is a fresh product of PICQ's own APC, which was observed and commended closely by an RACS representative last April 2021. She is currently based in UAE in Abu Dhabi, and she is the head of Global PAP1 or PICQS APC Preparation for Beginners 1, also known as the PICQS Structured Training Level 2, leading the overall execution of PAP1 for Asia Pacific and Middle East region. Okay, so without further ado, let us welcome in virtual stage Miss Joan Urbuda. Hi, Miss Joan. Welcome to Patch.
Hi, AJ. Thank you for having me as your co-host. And it's quite nerve-wracking for me. Good day to you and to all the members of our viewers, of your viewers, Patch, globally. And it is indeed a busy month for us, PAP1 team. Since the sessions have already kicked off and the pilot sessions gladly were a success. And I would like to take this opportunity to commend all the PAP1 committee team for the success of this of their sessions, and also congratulate in advance the attendees, the 95 participants, and all the SMEs who supported the PAP1 globally.
Of course. Yes, congratulations for the successful kickoff. ME and Asia Pacific has now, I think last week has finished their first session, right? I was a witness and I attended the Southeast Asia, the Asia Pacific section. It was a great experience also because this is the first time that we're going to do it globally, and we have
Yes.
about 80 participants for PAP. Correct, Miss Joan?
It
About 80 combined, right?
Yeah, now it raises to 95 due to
Wow.
yeah, a lot of participants already are now interested to participate on this training program, which is we gladly accepted for the all the late enrollees, since this is also the best for them for this structured training program on their journey towards chartership.
Yes, and also it is means level 2 is very good. To me, it's the most challenging structured training of PICQS because we tend me as quantity surveyors, we are usually focused in just an aspect. Let's say you are under a contractor side, then you'll be doing payment claims and then
Yeah.
processing, right? When if you're on
Yes.
the consultant side, you're mostly overseeing the works of, I mean, the submissions of the contractors and doing the commercial management, more commercial management. So
Yes.
with this PAP, we get to experience both sides in a different way. So it's really great experience.
Yeah.
And
Agree to that.
the way they do it, the way your team did it for the first session was, very it's a new experience because we have breakout rooms and the participants get to have
Yeah.
enjoy and do the workshop themselves. So I'm looking forward to the next sessions, and it's really also an honor to be one of the speakers for Asia Pacific section. So thank you so much for the trust also. And congratulations once again. So our guest for this afternoon is this is a very exciting journey and story as well
Yes.
because I think our guest for this afternoon has gone through a lot, and she is at the peak of her career where she
Yeah.
right now she had just got a promotion this month
Yes.
as regional director for Faithful and Gould in Cambridge,
Wow.
London. Okay.
Yeah. So when I've heard about her story, and then it's really an honor. This is the reason I'm really glad that you invited me over to be your co-host, AJ, because
Thank you.
hearing her story, the memories of how my APC went, and still afresh. But during the initial interview with moms, I found that our special guest story was really moving and inspiring. And of course, personally, I was touched of this story. So why don't we introduce her so she can step in our virtual studio?
Okay.
AJ, do the honor.
Okay, so apart from being the regional director of Faithful and Gold, okay, she climbed the ladder of commercial management from her humble beginnings as quantity surveyor for Davis Langdon and Sea in the Philippines, and then she went to Middle East prior to getting hired in Faithful and Gold. So let's hear more about her story. Let her tell her story to us firsthand. Let us welcome to the virtual stage Engineer Michelle Miranda.
Yes.
Hi,
Woo.
Michelle.
Hi everyone. Well, good morning here anyway. And yes, thank you so much for having me, Miss AJ, Miss Joanne. It is such a pleasure to be part of the Patch program. And I'm genuinely grateful for the opportunity to not just share my APC experience, but also have the chance to support our fellow Filipino quantity surveyors to achieve, chartership as well, because obviously as working parents for most of us, we need to balance personal, family, and work commitments, and this is especially true during the COVID period when the new normal now means connecting globally is possible through virtual calls such as this. So yeah, it's truly an honor as well from my side. It's such a pleasure to be able to tell my story.
The pleasure and honor is ours. Okay, it has been
Yes.
ages since we have last seen each other back in the university, and who would have thought that a decade after we are now here with John sharing a virtual stage, and we're in different parts of the globe. So I think that's really a silver lining that we get to connect, and we even get to share your story live
Yeah.
through Patch. Okay, so but how? Let me just ask you. So how's the weather there in London and in UAE now?
So yes, here in Cambridge it's a bit cloudy. So it's it's gray. It's very overcast, but it's not really abnormal. This is typical British summer, unfortunately. We had a few sunny days, but I think that must be it. We've had our 4 days of summer, but no, hopefully,
Wow.
yes, in the next few weeks, we're hoping for, especially during the children's summer holidays, we're hoping for some, a bit more friendly or more family friendly sunny days. But yeah, it's a bit overcast
Oh.
now.
How about you, John?
As Ma'am Michelle knows, it's the weather here is I think times two of the weather there for summer. It's humid and just yesterday it's around 42 and
Wow.
today is around today is 40 degree. So it's quite hot outside. Better to lock in yourselves at home.
Oh, yes. Okay. So it's really that hot at the moment, but I hope you're doing great and you are hydrating yourself enough
Yeah.
not to,
Yeah.
not to be dehydrated. Okay.
Yes,
So
exactly.
this afternoon is a lot of surprises because Michelle has also prepared a presentation slide about her case study during her actual APC final assessment. But at this point, we would like to check and then have a quick discussion about Michelle's career journey in a nutshell. So why don't you go ahead? I believe John has a few questions on how your career went on from the moment that you have finished your degree in the university.
Yes, I've heard from during our initial interviews that Ma'am Michelle, you have a degree in civil engineering and postgraduate for surveying also, and a chartered and certified surveyor, all rolled into one. And was quantity surveying or commercial management is your passion from the beginning, or was it a call to duty?
Well, the thing is, I've always loved maths when I was little. So when everyone was hating on maths, I was the total opposite.
Yeah,
I just, even when I
I'm one
did
of those.
university, I prefer the maths. If I can just have math subjects, I'd be happily doing that the rest of my university. But so yeah, I think a career which focuses very much on numbers is going to be a calling for me, and it's going to be where my interest will be. So as you said, I graduated with a degree in civil engineering, but shortly after obtaining my degree, I did delve a bit into construction management, but that only lasted like 3 months. I wasn't really into it, and I knew as well from my subjects, I'm never going to be into the actual civil engineering design side of things as well. So
Mhm.
that's not really where my passion lies. So I went back to the numbers, numbers, data passion, and so even when I did my dissertation, my thesis, it was more on the project management side of things. So
Mm.
when I applied to Makati Development Corporation as a cost engineer, that's when I discovered actually there is a role in construction and I can use my civil engineering knowledge, but then just work on numbers. So yeah, that's essentially where my journey as a quantity surveyor began. It felt very organic.
Wow. Wow.
That's very overwhelming. But the way you went through it is, I mean, to me, I have the same realization. While I was even studying, it already came to my senses that no, I cannot do design per se. So, and I think the fact that we have this rapport or we can talk to people. I think that's one thing that move us to going through the commercial side of things,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think it's working to our advantage. As I mean, to where we are now, but during the career path that you're taking, have you what were the challenges that you encountered while you're building up your career? I mean, you're a woman in the construction industry, and now you're a regional director, and for sure in the place where you're in now, there are a lot of male who were this is a male dominated career
Yes. Career,
or
yeah,
dominated
exactly.
profession.
It is, and I think it pretty much still is from the time that we graduated, AJ, to where it is now. And this is not just in the Philippines as well, even here. So it's very much male dominated. So it's again having been where I was and where I am now, I'm very much conscious of the fact that we need more women into the industry. And you asked me about, like, blockages and any hindrances along my path. I think I've been blessed with supportive employers, but it also comes from self determination. So, being a parent, that's always going to be a struggle. But if you're determined to do it for your family, for yourself, then great. But the thing is, we need to let other women, other girls, be aware that it is male dominated, but you can change that. So if you consider the construction industry, you can change, the status, and it shouldn't be a male dominated industry. We add so much value as women. We multitask. I think we are natural problem solvers. So yeah, it's the struggle really is to just try to fit in that sort of already male dominated world, and then show the next generations that I did it. You can do it. Let's change.
So, so, ma'am, that said, is this the reason? That said, is this the reason why you moved to take the APC? Is this a requirements to your job or to your career, or tell me about this? I'm very curious. With your journey to of APC journey.
So with the RICS being based in the UK, obviously, employers, well, quantity surveyor employers would always encourage you to be chartered. During my time, it was more on the encouragement, but I am aware now that for our new recruits, for example, they, as part of their graduate development program, they are required to be chartered. So it's pretty much mandatory now. But
I
yeah,
see.
before I was able to start my APC journey, though, I needed to have a sort of like valid degree. My
Okay.
employer did sponsor me for my post graduate diploma. So they paid for all of my
Ah,
fees for my university
wow.
and my
Uh-huh.
RCS fees. I'm really lucky, and because the university, I graduated from UP, like AJ, UP Los Baños, and because our degree there is a recognized, well, because UP is a recognized education provider by the University of Reading. I think my course was originally supposed to be between 2.5, 3 years, but I only
Mm.
managed to do half of it because the first 1 to 1.5 years of foundation courses, they said I don't need to take them because I've already, taken equivalent courses, if you like, from
Yeah.
UP. So yeah,
Mm.
not everything that I studied in the Philippines, was sort of for nothing. It wasn't. So it helped me just cut in half my postgraduate diploma from CEM here from the College of Estate Management from the University of Reading.
So it was really a foundation. I mean, a deeper foundation on commercial management. The the postgraduate diploma in surveying. Would you
Yeah.
I mean, recommend this course to to us who are also going through the same path?
Definitely, because what I didn't study back in the Philippines was contract practice, but that's now pretty much, I'd say, more than half of what my passion is now as well. So before, it was only numbers, it was only data, but now it's both numbers, data, and contract practice. So I'm very much into contracts and make sure it's being followed properly. So yes, definitely take the course. It adds so much value. You won't be studying the same things, and yeah, it will just add to your knowledge. We have the experience. We are determined. Filipinos are very hardworking. So if you're given the opportunity to study a course like that, you can also choose if you want to focus on quantity surveying or M&E QSing. You can do that on that course. So you can select what you want to specialize in. It just happened that I chose to specialize in contract contract law and
Mm.
contract practice.
That's great. Okay, so
That's
while
great.
we
Yeah.
move on to the next patch, segment of our program, which is actually, I just wanted to let you breathe a little bit so you would not feel so with all the questions that we're throwing you. That's why I had to play it. Although we are already in the middle of the discussion about your APC preparation, and what was the timeline? I mean, you went through it in 2015, and then how long did you prepare for your APC?
Not very long at all. So I actually moved to Cambridge 2014, and that was February 2014. Towards the end of that year, I think I will have the projects and the experience to do my APC properly. So I decided around September, October time that yes, I am going to be fully committed. I shall do my APC. And back then, RCS still had the professional experience route. So, and no one in FNG has done it before. So I didn't have the support in terms of someone already doing it, maybe asking them, any templates, how did you get on? So I just had to be, committed myself. And I asked Benji, my husband, if he would be, willing to support as well. And obviously he is. He's a very supportive husband. And so are my friends. I didn't have any social time at all. But like I said, it didn't take long. By the time I decided in October, the deadline for submitting pre-qualification documents is November. So I still remember me sitting down on a Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I only got up at 4 a.m. the following day because that following day was the deadline when I needed to submit it.
Wow.
So I didn't. I only stood up for like breaks, but all my food, everything, Benji was bringing to me. I just needed to focus and do it. And I did. The pre-qualification needed to be submitted to RCS directly. So they were the ones then to tell you if you're, ready or not for the actual final interview. And luckily, they did. And they said I was ready. So that's a bolt of realization. So I had to follow through, obviously. And yes, the following day, I took the final interview, and the rest is history. I passed. So I think overall, less than 10 months. So I'm not saying
That's what's
I definitely will not say that is what you should do. You should squeeze it in. Like, no, it was so stressful. There are better ways around it. But yeah, my journey was unfortunately only offered that 10 months. And I was, like I said, I was lucky enough to be able to do it right first time.
Wow, that's a very short period.
yes, it's a fast track program.
I thought construction has acceleration.
Yes, yes.
You have an accelerated APC journey. And as you mentioned, you were having a toddler back then, correct?
Yes, Zara was barely 2 when I did that. So that was the hardest thing because not only did uh, Ben needed to support me, he also needed to do everything else with regards to the family. So,
No.
if Zara wasn't well or if they need something from school. So Zara was barely 2 and Ella was barely 6. So sort of they were both still practically
Wow,
toddlers
yeah.
at that time. And we just
Yeah.
don't forget we just moved to a new location as well. So yeah, it really was. I really don't wish that on anyone. It's too much to manage. But yeah, like I said, Filipino women in particular were very very natural multitaskers, I think. And once we
Agree
put our
on that.
minds
Correct.
into it,
Yeah.
we just get on with it and then follow through. So I think that's one thing that I can say I got that from being a Filipina.
Correct.
Definitely. We agree 100% with you about the multitasking one. Anyway,
Yeah.
on a side note, this is the first patch session we're in. Both the host and the guests are all female. So this is an all female patch session. So girl power.
Girl power.
Okay, so by the time when you took the APC, it was about the same time when PICQS was still establishing structured training. On my case and John's case, we both had the pleasure to have these structured trainings in place, and then we are taking it like these trainings are within the year. You can take it, and you are ready to enroll for APC, and then do the succeeding steps as that you have gone through. So without these structured trainings, I can see that your postgraduate diploma played a good role. And but how else? What else do you think are the ingredients that you were able to nail it the first time?
Yeah. What are
Um,
the preparations?
Yes, what were the preparations?
so the revision was every night. It has to be, and it's also like I pestered a lot of people for Q&As. Benji did a lot of Q&A with me, but I realized that wasn't really enough because I also need to practice the delivery. The knowledge really isn't enough. So we always say in the APC, it's required level 1 is knowing, level 2 is doing, level 3 is advising. And
Yes.
even if you manage to be an expert on all of that, with English being our second language, we also have this sort of other level of delivering. We need to be articulate in how we respond to the answer. So that's where I really really pushed for a lot of Q&As, and even now, not just with my staff, with my staff or colleagues, even just friends, fellow Filipino friends doing their APC, I always offer, let's just have a Q&A. It's all down to that. It's not just the actual answer itself. If you know the answer, you have to articulate it really well. Otherwise, the assessors won't know what you're trying to say. You might know the answer, but if you don't deliver it well, then yes. So it's revision and the practice. So nothing new really, but that you need to start off with commitment. You need to be committed. You need to accept. You will not have a social life. You will not see your friends during that time. You will have to say no to some cuddles. So yeah, it's just the mindset. Your mindset needs to be, I am committed. I will follow this through. There will be an end. I shall do this right first time. So yeah.
Oh, that was a great help. I mean, it's a great contribution from your friends and family to ask you questions. And for sure, some of your friends and families are not even within the same, I mean, profession that you're in. So maybe some of the questions they're really unaware of, or, but it would still ask you just to, check on how you deliver things.
That's right, yes. And some of them won't even need or be aware of the APC themselves, but yeah, it's this sort of sacrifice, if you like. They might say the opposite, and they might be watching now. Shout out to my best friends, but yes, it's a sacrifice of not me saying I'm really sorry I won't be able to attend. They might have an important event, but I'm really, I apologize because I have to review, I have to revise and all that. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a village effort to get
Yeah.
there.
It's a
It may
tough time.
Agree. It made me curious now. I just want to ask and turn the camera to Joanne here. When you had the APC journey or yeah, different APC journey with PICQS own APC, and then you had these structured trainings in place. And what else were the preparations that you had to go through to this APC?
I think the hardest part for me, in addition to what Ma'am Michelle said, no social life and everything, the hardest part for me is how to structure my during Q&A, how to structure my answer correctly. It was very hard for me because yes, English is not our first language, so that's the toughest experience for me, how to deliver it correctly in a structured manner or in a correct manner na which is acceptable to the assessors.
Wow. But yes, kudos to both of you and congratulations. You did a very great job. My APC, my APC story is on the way. I'm 4 years.
I'm rooting for you, AJ.
We're
Thank you
here,
so much. Thank you so
AJ.
much. Now
Q&As.
I feel more, I feel more comfortable because I have two. Probably you could be my advisors, left and right, and one of my mock-up interviewers later on when we are ready. So, before we proceed to our next part of the program, I would like to have a side note. This year is a very special year for Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors, or PICQS, as we are going to host the PIQS conference or 24th Congress. So this is a big event for us, and also we are celebrating our 10th year anniversary. So happy 10 years to PICQS.
Wow,
So for a
that's
break,
fast.
yes, correct. So before you do your case study presentation, let us have a word from some of our sponsors, and here it goes.
RIB Software is a pioneering enterprise committed to driving innovation and technological advances in the construction and real estate industries. I took Cost X by RIB is being used in over 90 countries around the world, and it is a complete estimating solution with 2D takeoff, 5D beam support, integrated workbooks, and customizable reports, all in one program. Become faster, smarter, and more accurate today with i2 Cost X. PICQS would like to thank Philippine Constructors Association Incorporated or PCA for being PICQS supporting affiliate partner in hosting the Pacific Association of Quantity Surveyors or PICQS 2021 Congress. More than 70 years after it was established, PCA is a partner for nation building, a leading exemplar for the industry here and abroad, a catalyst for change, and an organization that embodies excellence and knows that prestige comes with performance. Thank you, PCA, and see you in PIQS 2021 Congress.
Okay, there you have it. I hope you were able to get or have a little drink before we proceed while we are on break. So, ayan. So now we are going to have and hear and see about your case study, the one that you presented for your final assessment interview. So I'm now sharing my screen. Okay, thank you so much, Michelle, and take it away.
Yes, so my case study for my APC then was just on the cost management experience that I had when I was the QS lead for a Cambridgeshire County Council primary school. The project was an expansion, so it was already an existing school, and we were going to expand it.
Okay. Sorry.
So that's a nice photo of Cottenham Primary School. So that's in central Cambridge. So throughout the presentation, so I'll cover a bit about some introductions about the project itself, our own appointments, what I did, what the procurement method was, name contract, the contract details, and then I'll discuss what the key issues were, and then obviously following that, what my strategy was and outcomes of those strategies. And then lastly, obviously, for any project and any experience really, we will focus on the best practice that was done during that project and any lessons learned as well. So yes, the project is like I mentioned, it's an existing primary school based located in a residential village in just north of central Cambridge, and so the school was already serving a number of pupils, but it's been identified that it can be expanded, and it needs to be expanded because it's already sort of overpopulated, if you like, as in they're accommodating more students than they should have. But obviously, the needs of the village, because that they have the children, so they need to have a school place. So the client agreed that they will expand the school from a 2.5 form of entry to a 3 form of entry. So form of entry is essentially in the Philippines, just to give you to explain it the right context. It's sort of the sections. So if you say for one school year, we have reception in the years 1 to 6, so that's 7 years. And for one form of entry, it's the 7 years. For a 2 form of entry, it's essentially 2 sections per year. So at the moment, the school is operating as a 2.5 FE, and we're expanding it, so it's 3 FE, which is obviously it's 3 sections per year. And then Faithful and Gould, we were appointed to provide project management, quantity surveying, the CDM coordinator role, and the NEC supervisor services. Like I mentioned, I was then acting as a senior QS responsible for the cost management for the project, but only starting from contract sum agreement. So another QS did the pre-construction side of things. So the project itself, to enable the expansion, we needed to remodel the existing school to enable the extension, and then we needed to provide a new build, just new block for the school attached to the existing school, and obviously the new play areas as well. The works include demolition of existing rooms to be replaced, obviously, by the new two-story extension, and also refurbishment of some of the remaining existing internal areas. Obviously, the new areas need to match the old areas.
I
And
see.
yes, and obviously external works as well. We need to make good around, and we need to provide new sports, new play areas really. So the client is Cambridgeshire County Council, and the main contractor is Morgan Sindall. And the project was procured using two-stage design and build. So it's a very popular procurement method here in the UK. And the client had their own main contractor framework, so it wasn't like open tendering. They already had a selected number of contractors bidding for the project. And the contract that we used was NEC3. It's the ACC option A. This was my first exposure to NEC itself, and the start of a very, very good love story between me and NEC in contract practice. So option A is the price contract with activity schedule. And as part of the scheme, as part of the extension, the project needed to achieve a BREEAM rating of very good. And in terms of like actual the new build like extension itself, we used CLT, so that's cross-laminated timber. And also asbestos removal was one of the main risks. So asbestos was present in the existing school. The total GIFA is just I think it's just under 2,000 square meters, combination of both the new build and the refurb areas, and the construction duration was just over 1 year. It was 57 weeks, and it completed August 2015. And lastly, the agreed contract sum was 4.15 million, which back then is around between 300 to 400 million pesos, I would think. But that's not really a lot for a school. It's within the normal benchmark you'd expect for a project this size. So that's sort of like the project introduction. The photos there are just the finished areas really as part of the extension.
I
Okay.
see. Wow. Key issues.
The
So
exciting
we're
part.
all in terms of the key issues, we always focus on the four key areas anyway. So it's always time, cost, quality, and obviously also the risks in association with those. So in terms of time, the August 2015 completion was not flexible at all. Like I mentioned, the school's already overpopulated, and there's going to be a new batch of students in the new school year. So it needs to complete by the time because the kids will be there, so they need a classroom. That's not negotiable at all. So in terms of cost, uh, when I think this is a typical scenario most of the time that the initial submission from the main contractor is just so severely over budget. So the overall budget for the scheme was 4.6, and this includes the main contractor cost and everything else. But the submission from the contractor was in excess of 4.6. So not only were they severely over budget from their own construction, budget level, they were over budget for the whole project outturn level. So it was really bad. And in terms of quality, again, there's not much flexibility. We needed to achieve that BREEAM very good rating, and also it's already been negotiated and agreed with the key stakeholders. So the client is Cambridgeshire County Council, but the key stakeholder is the school themselves. So if they've already agreed to the number of rooms, the finishes, and all that, to then go back and say, we might need to not do some of them is going to be a big risk. So quality is again it's an issue in terms of there's really not any capacity to commit any of the already agreed items. And lastly, in terms of risk, aside from the three we already mentioned, asbestos is existing, so that's already a risk that we know that we need to allow for throughout the duration of the project. And on a personal note, the issue with me is, aside, I've just moved to a new office. This is my first time to be exposed to NEC. So new experience for me. And yes, I have two toddlers that I'm also
That's the major key issue.
that's the major issue. That's everyday issue, yes.
Okay, so let's check how you've approached all these key issues and moved on to how successful the project came about.
yes, so sticking with those four, core areas. So if we focus on time and quality for now, as you can see there, I've done a sort of visual representation of how we dealt with the time in terms of the completion date is not negotiable. It needs to be August 2015. The top bar chart there is what our normal program would have looked like if it wasn't over budget. But because the second stage submission was over budget, the second bar chart with the orange line in, it indicates how long the negotiation needs to be and what the resultant effect of that towards the end. So as you can see, the completion in the end extends beyond August. So that's unacceptable. It cannot be. So we need to be a bit more innovative on how we dealt with the program. So the final bar chart there on the bottom, it's what we actually did on the contract. So while we were negotiating the contract sum, and I will, because I will not just say, oh, we just need additional funding. It is what it is. Of course not. Um, very determined to have a look at it and make sure all of the non-compliant items, wish list items, are taken out of the scope and the costs are actually reasonable. But I needed, while we're doing that, we need the program to move. So I've also suggested if we were going to have a separate enabling works contract, which then, knowing that the project is never going to be cancelled, so there's no risk of aborted cost if I just need more time to agree with the cost. The enabling works contract allowed the project to progress in terms of placing orders for long leading items, just procuring the likes of the CLT, for example, because they needed to be designed first. So by doing that and also doing, the demolition works, removal of asbestos, because schools are off during school holidays. So I thought we need to take advantage of that time and do the asbestos removal when the staff and the students are not there, and also the demolition works as well. So they were all being done while we were agreeing the contract sum. So what happened was I had enough time to agree the cost, and eventually it was on budget, if not slightly less, below budget. And
Wow.
the program itself carried on. So as you can see, the completion date there on the bottom program is just the same with the original program that we were aspiring to. So we still finished in August 2015. School starts there by September. So yeah, we had it still allowed some float in there if you like, but yeah. And yes, the choice of the CLT helped a lot. CLT is sort of modular. So once you've done the design and they manufacture, when they get to site, they just work on assembly. So if there's no, for example, or concrete there, you have to pour it and it's very slow. No, for CLT, it's very straightforward. Even all the main holes and all the services holes, they're already embedded as part of the structure. So there's less builders work intervention if you like. It's very fast. So that also helped a lot as well. And for the enabling works, once I've agreed the contract sum and I'm ready to agree the main fee contract, my suggestion then was to just subsume the enabling works contract as part of the main contract, so that going forward, I just have the one contract. There's no confusion and everyone is happy.
You did an amazing job with the CDM role. I believe
Yeah.
so. It
Agree
holds
to that.
totality for them to be able to meet that. I mean, together with your team, of course. Okay.
So in terms of cost and risk, again, going back to like the key issues, in terms of how I managed to agree, a contract sum that is not just within budget, but is actually reasonable. But we have to remember as quantity surveyors is we don't just we don't just aim for a lower cost just to be within budget. You don't want to end up with a contractor going bust in the middle of your project, because that will be your headache as well. So you need to make sure that it's fair, it's reasonable, and it's
Correct.
within budget because the contractor signed up to that, but it needs to be reasonable. So what I did was, in terms of technical checks, obviously we always do a maths checks and all that, and the completeness and the qualifications, anything that they said, we've allowed for this risk allowance, it's design and build. If it's fair enough, that's fine. But if I know that the client has already allowed for that, then I ask them, you have to remove it, otherwise it's being duplicated. So that's not efficient. And in terms of the actual contractor packages, I also made sure that at least 70% by value received, at least 3 subcontractor returns, just to make sure that it is reflective of the market. Where they've only received just the one, subcontractor return, then I said we have the time to agree this, so they should also go back to their subcontractors and ask for another quote. So that really helped a lot, as in we agreed on a contract sum that's not just reflective, of the actual economy we're in back then, but also, I can demonstrate to the client that this is what the market is saying. This is value for money. We've proven it by getting at least 70% of your packages. So from memory, the 70% was a minimum, but we achieved more around between the 90 to 100%, getting at least 3. And
Wow.
again, it's a main contractor framework, so they've already agreed maximum framework rates with CCC in terms of prelims, overheads and profit, and design development risk allowance. So I just needed to make sure that they comply with all of them. I realized that they were trying to hide some main contractor prelim items in some of the subcontractor packages, so those were all taken off. And there was a bit of a debate around me saying this is a main contractor item, so you are not entitled to additional cost. Otherwise, you're not complying, with your framework terms. So in the end, obviously, they agreed to that, and that also, more importantly, set a precedence for future projects with them, in that they know they shouldn't play games with me anymore. And lastly, it's just a diligent check as well, that they don't have any exclusions there that then just places an additional risk to my client. They cannot just say, yes, we're within budget now, but we have excluded X. So that as long as they don't exclude items that's within their liability as a design and build contractor, then yes, that's fine. And obviously, I needed to have a separate small contract sum agreement for the enabling works package. But that pretty much followed the same principle, and I just needed to make sure that the contract for that was also robust. So in terms of like the outcome, the overall reduction that I realized for this project was 523,000
Wow.
pounds, which is quite a lot. So that really put the contract sum back to budget. So the construction budget was just 4.1. They submitted nearly 4.7, so we achieved that, and now we're back within budget. We also did a VE workshop, which for me, being a new member of the team and new to everything, new client, new contract, it helped me realize, I need to also have a collaborative mindset about this. It cannot be a me against you. We need to work together, and we need to go through the
True.
items. And there's also the contingency as well. I also challenged, uh, do we really need a change contingency? You said that the school already has everything that they want in the scope. Do you still want a separate contingency just for any future changes when you're over budget? So I think the approach from the client should be, there should not be any more change unless it's a realized risk. Any
Necessary.
wish list items, we just say no. And obviously, if they have the money in the end, then they can consider. But that's the approach that I asked them to take, which they did. And lastly, it's a combination of a contract sum, obviously that's now within budget, and the VE workshop, making everyone feel that we're in a collaborative partnership. This is a project we all want to be successful on it, and also that all led to a final project cost plan, which has no additional risks to the client. Is still a healthy risk register allowance, for
Uh-huh.
items that I know might come up on site, and obviously that enabled the project to commence and complete. So happy to report that it did complete August, and the children who used the new rooms, they were all happy, especially the head teacher. So they were happy with their new bigger school.
Who would not? Who would not do that?
Yeah.
If only they knew the struggle behind.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
only they knew what you had to go through, what your team has to go through.
Just to
So in
deliver this
terms
a
of,
successful project.
yeah, it really was. It was a struggle, but in the end, it was successful, and no one fell out. That's the thing. So we didn't finish it with bad feelings towards each other, and I'll touch a bit on some of those with our best practice and lessons learned. So I'm very much into this right first time. So obviously on this one, it wasn't really right first time because their contract sum submission was over budget. So obviously, for the next projects, if you will never expect that. You will never expect a contract sum submission that's always going to be on budget or so perfect. But on your side, though, because I was exposed to a lot of new, like a new contract, a new client, and everything. I also need to personally prepare myself for it. So I studied the contract. I did my own research. I was scared to ask questions as well. You shouldn't be scared of, looking like, oh, I shouldn't. She doesn't know that. I don't care about that at all. I'd rather ask questions. I'd rather know
Yeah.
instead of assume. And then all of this knowledge, I then put into action. So like I mentioned, the enabling works contract, that's from me researching into what can we do, behind the scenes to enable this project. And then also you have to. I also learned the process itself. So it's not also just doing what is being expected of you. You should always, as a minimum, and then, to be fair, and I think Filipinos have this as a sort of baseline already anyway. We should always try to think, how can I add value to something? It's not just about you doing what is being asked of you. It's not just you doing your task, but how can you do your task well? And also at the end of it, someone will say, "Oh wow, you did this," and also that. So how do you add value to what you're doing? And again, we did that by optimizing the program, by being innovative. The second one is value for money. So it's part of our normal, task as QSs, just checking costs and all that. But it's not always just the cheapest. You should seek for something that's reasonable, that's fair, and that's it's value for money. So seek evidence that it's been competitively tendered, and
Yeah.
don't limit to cost plans. Don't limit to cost plans and QA your work. So in terms of, you should also look at the contract itself. So just because you have a good contract sum, if your client ends up with more risks, that's not really, a like for like comparison, is it? They
Yeah.
still haven't, benefited from the whole effort that you've done. So you have to be mindful of the full package. And then obviously, and this is especially, with us aiming to be chartered surveyors, we always need to act with integrity and always in a way that promotes trust to the profession. So that's two of the core, global standards for RCS members. So it was a very, very stressful moment, personally for me and for the project as well. And I'm sure with the main contractor, they have their own targets, but you always have to remember, remain professional, remain respectful. You have to come out of it with your integrity still intact, and you always have to act in a way that you will never be questioned. If you go back and think, if you, I always do this, and I always tell this to the people I manage. If you always imagine that there's an invisible camera following you on everything you say and everything you do at work, and anyway, then you will be more conscious, and you will always think, is this the right thing to say? Is this the right thing to do? Will I regret this one day? So it really helps. So I really, recommend that as well. And yes, be collaborative as well with your main contractors. It doesn't always need to be a you versus me scenario. You can work together. You have the
Yes.
same planning. You have the same aims. So all of those, on my case study, I demonstrated to RCS that, having been put in a new project and a new form of contract and a new client and a new office, I still managed to take the lead. I agree a contract sum within budget and agree a help towards a program that will still meet the target completion date. And throughout that, I was diligent, I was proactive, and I did an exemplar commercial management role, if you like. So essentially, the case study should show you being a competent quantity surveyor, that RCS can trust you. That when you're a chartered surveyor, they can say, yes, and her clients will be in good hands if we get her the job. So yes, essentially that was my case study.
Agree. Slow clap and
Yeah. Wow.
very well. It's a very concise case study, but a lot to learn from it. Actually, as we speak, Chair Julie has been sending me private messages, and if we would allow, he really, there's one line that I would like to quote. Michelle significantly went way above in her career. Looking back at how she started at Davis Langton and Philippines, I think she was involved in Ayala projects, and her case study is very good. A lot to learn from it, indeed. And I value those things that you have mentioned about fair subcontracting. I mean, if we don't care about our subcontractors, who would take care of us? I mean, the project itself, right? So I
Correct.
really value
Their
that one.
supply chain is part of the project team, so we cannot just be, having a mindset of the contract sum is this, and you should work towards that, and I don't care how you do it. That's never the right approach. Like I said, you don't want to end up with a contractor going bust in the middle of your project. You also want to care about the supply chain that they're managing, because
Mm,
that's contract sum at contractor level. What happens? What is the effect of that on their supply chain? Would you then don't forget the supply chain will be the community that you're working in. It affects everyone. It's not just a
Yeah.
project. Your project will serve the community in terms of the students, but the actual main contractor itself, they have their own sort of community with the supply chain. So yeah, you want to be supporting, the lowest level to the most local traders within that supply chain. They will probably bear the most what do you call it, uh, the most struggle if you are being unreasonable from here,
correct.
in terms of like
Yeah.
chain effect. They will bear that because it will just get passed on. So you have to be a bit more um, looking at the big picture scenario.
So you need to be compassionate also to all the teams, not just on the client side and everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. I mean, she has to mediate in many ways.
Yes.
Of course,
She
because
has to
obviously
do a lot of
I also
negotiation.
want my client to achieve best value. So it also needs to be fair to them. So yes, it's a balancing act. But I think we're very good. Like I said, we're very good with that. As long as you have that mindset, that you just have to be fair and reasonable. Then yes.
Agree. Okay, for
Wow.
the benefit of the viewers that we have mentioned a number of things. I just think I wanted to highlight first like a few. These are just two slides. So you've mentioned about REBA stages 4 to 7 in your case study. So just for the benefit of for the knowledge of everyone. So REBA stages 4 to 7 is on the technical design, manufacturing, construction, handover, and use. So that's the scope of works that she has to go through with her case study. And then some of the items that she has mentioned in the BREEAM, like Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method, which is the sustainability assessment method used for master plan projects, infrastructure, and buildings. UK or London is very known for these standards, RICS for one. And these are the things that mean in Singapore, for example, we don't use NEC or GCT. We have different forms of standard forms of contract. That's why and then in Philippines now, I think they're widely using FIDIC. Otherwise, contracts are still bespoke. And I really
Mm-hmm.
do hope that, I mean, in a wider scale or in the future, these standard forms of contract will be known to most contractors or in practice. Because even though we have our own standard forms of contract. I mean, I don't have anything against it, but we have, as contract administrators, we see what is going on, like when we are administering the contract itself, like some of the loopholes, some of the gray areas. I mean, no contract is perfect and no contract is complete. Anyway, so for the CDMC, that's Construction Design Management Coordinator, that's the role that one of the roles that Faithful and Gold has been tasked to do, and NEC's new engineering contract, formalized system and created by a UK institution of civil engineers, and the JCT contract, or the Joint Contracts Tribunal. They produce standard forms for construction, guidance notes, and other standard documentation for use in the construction industry in United Kingdom. But actually, even some other countries are also adapting to these standard forms of contract. And if you're going to take structured trainings of PICQS, like the ones in the level one, which is P3T, they we talk about it, and we share about these standard forms of contract. Yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. We now move to the final Q&A. that we have, which is your APC final, the case study, final assessment questions or the final assessment interview. Okay, so are you ready to relive the moment? And okay, so the first question I think will be shared by Miss Joanne, which is this one.
Yes. Uh, Wow, that's a nice presentation, Ma'am Michelle. And truly, I learned a lot from this session, from this segment. I will bring it into my own journey. Thank you so much for that knowledge that you've shared. Now, moving on, I just need to ask this question. Um, for the capital allowances, is replacing a lighting fixture considered lighting fixture considered a capital allowance? Or and are what are the enhanced capital allowances?
So one of my optional competencies that I've chosen was capital allowances, and I think I'd like to say it's very rare for a lot of my colleagues to choose that, because the experience for capital allowances, I actually only got that from working with RBS as well, Bank of Scotland. So as part of my role there, towards the end of a project, I helped them prepare tax analysis forms, and that is where I've been exposed to the likes of capital expenditure, revenue expenditure. So capital allowance is any asset that it's expenditure on an asset that will add value to your building, to your property, whereas revenue is more on the the maintenance and the just consumables and all that. So if you just replace the one lighting fixture, I'll argue that's just maintenance. If you have a broken light bulb and you replace it, that's just maintenance. So that's not really capex. That's not capital expenditure. So you cannot really claim capital allowance for that. But if you replace all of the lighting system in your building and you upgrade it, with while replacing it, then yes, that's capital allowance, and you can claim taxes here in the UK anyway. You can claim against your tax bill.
I see.
So yes, enhanced capital allowances. Back then, anyway, here in the UK, they used to have a scheme called energy efficient technologies, where aside from capital allowances, you can have an enhanced capital allowance. You can claim back more on your tax profit if, as part of the capital expenditure, your expenditure is also on energy efficient equipment. So, for example, if you choose a boiler, and not just a boiler, but it's an energy efficient boiler that's on the government's list, then you get to claim back more tax from your taxable
Oh,
profit.
okay.
That's because
I
you're
see.
investing on energy efficient technology. That scheme ended, I think, just early last year. But yes, back then, because I already had this knowledge about capital allowances, I thought I might as well choose this. Not everyone can choose that, but then I was fairly comfortable with that. And yes, that was the actual question that you were
Question.
asking as well. So that was very straightforward. So
So,
I'm pretty happy with that. Yes.
so it's another gain knowledge for me.
Yes, and I
Well,
would have to
because
look back this.
we're not accountants, so that's also the thing, that I help prepare the tax analysis forms. But any specific questions from my clients, I would always remind them, you have to ask a chartered accountant. I am not an accountant. I can prepare the form, with the construction knowledge that I know of what's capital, what's revenue, what's claimable, what's not. But in terms of specific questions in specific tax codings, they have to obviously refer to an accountant. We
Yeah.
are not accountants.
But I can see that you're a little bit of everything, and you have
Yeah.
rolled into one. That
Yeah,
means
agree to
to
that,
where you
AJ.
are now. Yes, hands off. Okay, so this is a lot of technical knowledge that we have, especially when we are talking about these actual APC questions that were asked to you during the final assessment interview. So here goes our second question, and this is on contract practice. So we've talked about this. What are the key differences between the JCT and NEC?
So I'll just choose two, I think. Otherwise, there's just loads of them. So the first one, and this is one that I particularly like about the NEC, I think the JCT, I'm sure you will agree, it's sometimes too confusing how they format the words. you have to read it again just to understand what are you trying to tell me. I don't understand. The NEC uses simple English. It's very straightforward, and their approach as well is for the JCT. I find that the JCT sets out procedures on what you need to do. If you come across a dispute, so the JCT says, "Do you have a dispute? Yes, you do. Here are the steps you need to follow to solve the dispute." I think that's how JCT approaches that. Whereas the NEC, the very first clause states that all of the parties should act with a spirit of collaboration and mutual trust. So it sets out that your baseline should be working collaboratively. So what the NEC does is it tries to avoid having a dispute in the first place. So whereas the JCT is more, this is how you solve it, the NEC is more proactive in that, well, let's try to avoid having an argument, a dispute in the first place anyway. And this is what you need to do, so you avoid that. So that's one of the key difference. The other one is a bit more technical in terms of wording. So for the JCT, we say valuations. For the NEC, we say assessments, site assessments. And for the JCT, we do like percentage valuations. So arguably, that's very subjective. If the contractor is claiming for concrete pouring, can you really say that your percentage is to the exact amount? Of course not. It's going to be an estimate, so it's very subjective. Whereas on the NEC, the assessments are based on completed activities only. So the question you only need to answer is it complete or is it not? If it's not, then you don't include it in your assessment. If it's complete, then you do. So those are the two key differences.
Wow. Well explained.
Yes.
And people more QSS discover the NEC and think, I want that.
I wish I could do that. I could explain like that.
Explained it appeared that that's how simple JCT and NEC. But when you look at these two forms of contract and the sub forms that they have available, I think my mind will bleed. Okay, so let's move on to the next question from your APC.
Yes, for construction technology, the question is, discuss 3 different frames you have used on your projects that you've worked on and the key benefits or disadvantages of each.
Well, that's a long question for an interview.
It is.
Maybe if I will be asked for this one, I'll get mental block.
And I think normally we're only ever exposed to 2. So it's either a concrete, structure or a steel structure. And obviously for concrete, the advantage is that it's cheap. It's probably the cheapest. The disadvantage is it's too slow and it's very much weather dependent. Obviously, unless it's like a modular precast concrete, then it's not weather dependent. But it's still fairly slow and it's heavy, so it means you have to reflect that on your foundations. For steel, advantages is it's widely available. Well, I say that, but then I think recently British Steel here has closed their books because there's just a very high demand for steel at the moment. So one of along those lines, steel. The disadvantage of steel is that the price of it is very volatile, as in it's unpredictable. As of now, it's peaking so high that everyone is hoping that this is not sustainable. It should come down at any point. But yes, the price of steel is very volatile. But advantage is obviously it's very your design can be flexible. It's light, so arguably maybe sustainable to some extent as well. But because it can be recycled afterwards, steel can be recycled. And then lastly, on Cottenham, I did CLT, so that's the cross-laminated timber. And I've mentioned that advantage already in terms of it's very fast. So once you've completed the design, it's not just the actual frame itself. The frame includes, the roofing structure as well, and your suspended floors. So it's all in one, and once it's delivered on site, they just assemble it like Lego, as it's all pre-designed, and even like the holes and the chases, it's all already pre-drilled, so you don't have to spend a lot of time diamond drilling on site or whatever because it's already there. But the disadvantage is obviously because it's been pre-designed, you're very, very limited on the changes afterwards. If your client changes their minds, even the likes of, I want to move my door from that side to this side, that's going to be impossible without redoing the whole thing, because the door
Yeah.
itself is already pre-designed to be there, so it needs to be there. And yes, as of now, we normally get our CLT from the EU. So another disadvantage is obviously with Brexit that just happened, then that's
Yeah.
at risk. But we can also source CLT locally anywhere. But
Hmm.
yes, all three of them advantage disadvantages.
Wow. Yeah.
Agree. I, for the whole session, I think I would have to say agree and
And then wow.
and wow and thank you for that. And that's another gained information. Okay, I would love to
It's a
go.
very common APC question as well, that one.
Yes, yes, indeed. And it's also one of the actually in some part. I think when I was being interviewed to be a member of PICQS, this was thrown out as well. Okay. Next question on construction technology as well. Is achieving BREEAM or BREEAM a very good statutory requirement?
So yes, so no, in Cotton Primary School, we needed to achieve a rating of very good for BREEAM. It's not statutory in the sense of, it wasn't mandatory, but here in the UK, we follow for schools design anyway. So our client have their own design guides, which is then obviously going to be based on a sort of national design guide for schools, which is the building bulletin. The building bulletin is more best practice. It's not really this is required, you have to achieve this. No, but it's best practice. But obviously, if it's best practice, then you want to follow that. You want that to be,
Correct.
you want to follow the principles of that for your project. And as part of the building bulletin is that you need to try to achieve BREEAM very good. So it's not statutory, but I do have projects where it is. So as it's definitely required that you have to follow it, and it's because it's part of the planning requirements. So if the planning consultants say, if the planners say that as part of your project, your scheme needs to achieve a BREEAM rating of very good or something else, then that's when it's not it's not optional. You have to meet that. It is statutory on those projects because it's part
Mhm.
of the planning consent given to your
Mhm.
project. So yeah,
If it
not for
forms part
Cotna,
of the
but yeah,
specifications, yes, then it will be
yes,
statutory in that sense.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You need to have like
Na-
there's a green mark rating also around, right? I mean, apart from the there's a number of certifications for buildings like the green building. So the here we need to have like green star rating of, let's say, gold or silver. So your design, if you're a design and build contractor, you need to adhere to those ratings and the requirements that fall into so that you'll be given this rating. But it's really good. It's a great guidance, if we follow it. Then of course the BM is more into the sustainability of buildings, which is a good drive. I mean, not just for the current generation but for the future. No?
It is. It's investing,
yeah,
in
exactly.
our children's future. Essentially, it's making sure that we have enough resources left for the future generations to use.
Yes.
So yes, and it's not just sustainability of the property of the building itself. It's making sure that the methodology of trying to build that building is also sustainable. So yes,
Yeah,
Couldn't
I agree.
agree.
I agree to AJ that this
Couldn't
is a
agree
good
more.
drive. Actually, this is a good drive for the future of our children. Yeah.
Yes, correct. And now we
Yeah.
move on to one
To our
question,
last yeah, to our last question, AJ.
which is on
So
ethics.
ethics.
Go ahead, Miss John.
Yeah. So for ethics, ma'am, how do you deal with a client who is unhappy with your service, and what what do you need to consider when you want to start your own practice? Actually, this was asked also by my ma'am Lilian to me.
this is also an actual question asked of me, and I nearly failed on this one because I didn't understand the question completely, or I assumed immediately that it means, oh, the client wants to terminate my service. So I think the first question I
Yes.
gave was, oh, there's a section in the contract about termination of service. But luckily, the chairman guided me and asked, put it more into context. He reworded the question and he said, it's more to do with a client just being unhappy, not really wanting to terminate your service. Like, oh, right, okay. Well, in that case, and you always like, and not just on paper, in reality, you do speak with the client first. You have to know, why are you unhappy? So what am I doing that's not really fulfilling your needs, or you're not really happy with, or what is the problem? Then we try to solve that first, just one on one, just have a chat. If they're still not happy and they want to escalate, you can, if you request for another meeting, say with your director, and they don't really want to do that, don't forget that you have to remind them that's part of your fee proposal. If you like, you should always provide a complaints handling procedure anyway. So for them, in advance, there's already a set of procedures that they can follow, who they need to contact if they want to escalate any issues with me or with any of my colleagues and all that. So yeah, and I think that's what the chairman just wanted to hear from me about the complaints handling procedure, doing that. But obviously, before going there, you need to be a bit more proactive. You can try to solve it first before going to your CHP. So before they escalate, if you can try to mitigate the situation yourself, or you and with support for your director, that should always be your priority. Try to like solve it first. And then in terms of if you want to set your own practice, that it's generally, you have to know what service you're offering first, because with that, you need to know as well who your target customers are. Is it just QSing? Is there a particular specialism in quantity surveying you want to offer? Is it just valuations, or, and yes, where you want your office to be based is also relevant, because you don't want to be offering quantity surveying in a place where there's not really any buildings happening. Or if you
Yeah.
want to be based there, but then you want to offer it widely, then yes, you just need to know all of those for your business, because as part of that, then you know what capital you need to invest in, to have your office, and all of that. And obviously, you have to have your own staff, an idea of how many numbers you need, and all that. And yes, you have to have the right insurances in place. Your professional indemnity insurance covers your practice and yourself and your staff, obviously. And lastly, you have to be registered with the IRCS
Yeah.
as a practice.
Yes.
So yes.
So
That,
maybe
that,
I will apply to your
I'm
company.
not going to build my own practice. I know the
you
theory
just
behind
got
it,
the
but I'm not
promotion.
going to do that.
That's a, I mean, after she have mentioned like what you need to prepare, you need to have a feasibility study, you need to have a plan, you need to have all this in place. Okay, I will just stick to my employment for now.
Correct.
Okay, so for the next, last but not the least part of our program, let us check out this one. Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful segment on the APC final assessment interviews. We have really gained a number of points to ponder on, and also knowledge to gain. We have gained
Yeah.
a lot of knowledge during the presentation itself and the Q&A. So now we are at this part of the program we're in, giving back. You are an ambassadress for this the APC journey and in your own company itself. Uh, Tell us more about it.
So obviously, after I passed my APC, I was very much aware of the struggles behind it, and not just being a parent and managing work, but I thought it's still a good experience to have, and more importantly, it's nice to have those four letters after your name. It's such prestige to just be called someone chartered, to have Emirates beside your name. So I thought I should really give back and help my colleagues become chartered as well. It will not just benefit the company, it will benefit the individuals as well, because you get to keep those four letters after your name, you know, with you wherever you go. So it's a lifetime achievement.
Correct.
And my company was very supportive of me with my postgraduate diploma and me doing my APC. Granted, I was very, struggling a bit on the actual APC experience, but that wasn't their fault. Like I said, the PER route then was very new, so we were all still learning. So at the moment, and since then, I've been an APC supervisor. I'm happy to note that those that I've supervised have a 100% pass rating. As in, did it right first time as well. But it's
Can
that
you mentor us also?
of course. And even now, so I'm also an APC counselor to someone doing it now. But even if I'm not, it's just it's just happily supporting them and guiding them. In that, if you have a working template, and I have one where I have a deadline date, and my template works backwards in that, right, if I know I want to be chartered by May, and it's now November, what do I need to do to get there? It cannot just be, it can, I have, how many competencies do we have? How many sign-offs do I need to achieve? So I worked backwards until I got to where I am, like present day. So I've created a sort of timeline for me. So I've given that template to a number of my colleagues since then. And it's the same for them, in that if you look from now to where you want to be, it seems like such a long time, but actually if you put it down on paper and work backwards, suddenly you have deadlines every 2 weeks. So it's not that, it doesn't seem that long, it doesn't feel that long anymore, does it? So yes, that it's simple things like that, like helping with the templates, but also just the mentoring, just encouraging them, and also being sensible about it. So it's not just pushing them and saying just do it now. It's also making sure, are you ready? Because like I said, I'd rather that someone commit to it because they're ready to to just fully commit to it. They have the support that they will need so that they can do it right first time. So I will never want to pressure someone who is not ready, who doesn't want to do it in the first place. So it will never work if you're not 100% dedicated to the overall process. So you have to be committed first.
Yeah,
You need to
true.
have the need for it. I mean, you need to want
Yes.
it for you to work on
Yes.
Yes.
it.
Plus, we all have,
Yes.
we have family. All of us have personal things happening, so it also needs, to match that. So yeah, you have to be, sensible about the person as well. So it's not always you have to do it as early as possible. No, you have to do it, when you're ready. And what can I do to help you get ready? So it's that
Mm,
approach.
Yeah.
great.
So, AJ, we need to get this template.
Happy,
We need
happily
the
help with the
template.
process.
We need the template.
And for our viewers who are watching, if the name of Michelle is down there, look her up in LinkedIn and then ask for the template.
For the best guide to your
For the
APC
best guide
journey.
to your APC. But if Michelle will be my mentor, currently I have an advisor. But if I think if Michelle will be my advisor, I'll be in so much pressure
Yeah.
myself to go through it
Oh,
successfully because she has a 100% rating. I need
Correct,
one
exactly.
in the first one to tarnish the rating.
Same here, AJ.
but don't forget that 100% rating. It wasn't because of me. It was because those people who achieved their chartership was dedicated. I'm only guiding and supporting where I can, but ultimately it was down to them. It was their own commitment. It was their own
Agree.
dedication. So
Yeah.
their own sacrifice. I wasn't sacrificing anything. Supporting and guiding, it should come naturally to us. If you've done it and you know someone is going through the same experience that you did, it should be natural for you to come to go and help them. So it was down to them, yes. But yes,
Uh,
added pressure of saying 100%. Don't do that.
but yes, it's a really nice of you to pay it forward and then extend this helping hand. Actually, not paying
Yeah.
forward, but you have devised your own way to be able to reach out to these people who wants to be chartered. Okay,
Yeah.
and you have you have touched me. Okay, now we have a phone-in question. Actually, the UK market lacks skilled QS professionals, and there's a skill shortage, especially for quantum specialists. What advice can you give to our PICQS members?
have a look at those available roles and don't be scared to apply, and don't look too much on the title. So you mentioned that I was already a quantity surveyor in DLS, Davis Langton Say, back in the Philippines. The role that I applied here was actually a step down. So I applied for an assistant quantity surveyor. But if you look beyond the title and look at the role itself and the experience you'll get, and if the role requires, a specialist kind of experience that you don't have yet, but you have the drive and you learn fast, then say it. Don't be scared. What can you lose if you apply? And if you mention all of that. So that's exactly what I did. So it's a new country. I didn't even realize where London was before. I thought I was applying for a role in Australia. The United Kingdom called me. But yes, like I said, I looked beyond the title. If I was focused too much on the title and the motion, then obviously I wouldn't have applied. But I looked more into the experience I'll get from that,
Yeah,
the
correct.
opportunity I'll have following that. So, and obviously it worked because yes, I was an assistant QS, but my line manager saw that I had potential. And on my very first BDR, his comment to my director, then I still keep that paper because I treasure it a lot. He said I was better with any compared to any senior professionals he's worked with in terms of efficiency and just
Wow.
knowing
Wow.
what the client need and want, even though they haven't told they haven't said it to us. And it's because it's reflective of the experience I achieved in Davis Langdon. In that, I wasn't, even though I applied as an assistant QS, I already had the experience of a QS at QS
Mm.
level back then. So
Mm.
so yes, if you're really good, you will get to where you need to be anyway. As in, you have the skills, you have the knowledge. Then don't look just at the title. Just look broadly. Look at the experience. Look at the opportunity you will get.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah. Agree to that.
Agree. Agree again.
Agree again.
I would always have to agree because what you're saying is always on point and it's really delivered well. And you need to just have to trust yourself on what you can deliver. Yes, you're very humble enough to accept. It's not a demotion. It's really not. I mean, you have to
No, you
look
have to
into
take your
what's
pride
beyond.
out of it. Yes,
Correct.
it's you have to choose. You choose your pride, or you choose your drive to just be more. So it's either one or the other.
Mm.
Plus, to be fair as well to the companies here, they emphasize a lot on ED&I, on equality, diversity, and inclusion. And obviously, with us being eventually, when I got here, and anyone who will apply to be here, we will be, part of the ethnic minority. But the value we can add to them, in terms of we have new ideas, the things I've learned back in the Philippines, I brought with me when I got my job here. It also benefits them. So they're not, you might think they're doing you a favor for bringing you here, but you're also giving to them your own experience that you have, and it might be new ideas, it might be a new way of working. You might see, look how efficient I am in doing this. So you also add something to the table. So it's like,
Win-win
it's
situation.
Yeah.
yeah.
Correct. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you very much for sharing all of these, especially your experience with your APC journey. We really value a lot, and we really value everything that you've said a lot, and the sharing that you have given us, especially your case study and the tips. I think I wouldn't. I would want to, extend this whole thing, the whole patch thing, and talk about the whole experience, and then later on I'll be sending my resume to you via email. But we have to I hate to say goodbye, but we would need to render our final statement at this point to our viewers. And I think yes, Michelle, you can go ahead and with your final statement, please.
No, I just wanted to just thank you so much again for inviting me and for having me today. And obviously, with both of you as well, and AJ, with taking time to actually prepare for this. So this talks like this at Patch, it's like I said, it's very good for linking in with everyone. And the APC mentorship, if that I mentioned before, PICQS is essentially, it embodies that. That's why we have the organization, because we want to inspire our members and we want to encourage them
Yes.
and help them be chartered and be competent quantity surveyors. So we
Mhm.
follow the same principles. We should help each other. And yes, I know you're also trying to like juggle work, personal, family life, and yet you have time to do this. So also like for you, for you both.
Yes.
Okay,
So
thank
thank
you.
you. And I hope by sharing my experience that our fellow members would think about doing their APC. If they're still thinking about it, just stop thinking and just have a think of actually trying to do it. Put it into action. And yes, I genuinely mean it when I say do reach out. If you think I can help, if you think I can support, then yes, I'd be happy to. And also like reach out to the ICQS obviously as well.
Wow.
And yes, take care, keep safe always. We will go through COVID. We shall
Yeah.
survive this.
Yes,
So just keep
definitely.
safe.
Mm. Thank you so much for that wonderful message. But before I ask John for her final statement, I would like to share this. I think somebody wants to greet you. Go Ate from Consumoto. Thank you so much for watching
My
and thank
brother,
you
yeah.
for your support. Okay, so now let's have and hear it from Joanne. Miss Joanne, thank you so much and all the best to Pop One. And we are
Yeah.
also here to support. Now you have Michelle, so we can invite her to be one of the SMEs. I think.
Yes, exactly. I'll do that. But
Okay,
it's sad. I don't want to end this. I'm still learning.
me too.
But anyways, I know Mom Michelle is so busy with her career, and you also, AJ. I salute you for this. My God, all I can say to you is wow, 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 wow. For the learning, wow also to Mom Michelle and to you for this patch. Wow, it's really an excellent experience. But I hope you please don't invite me again.
I think we will have to do that to feature your own APC story next time.
I
Yes.
will be out of the country or but anyways, thank you for all for the knowledge for inviting me over for Ma Michelle. I really learned a lot, and I will be taking all that knowledge with me in my own journey. And to you, AJ, thank you so much for this opportunity. And maybe for my final statement of account. uh, all I can say is for for every journey that we will be facing or we have right now in our lives, nothing is impossible as long as you will pray for it, work for it, and put your heart into it. That's all. Thank you so much. And
Thank you
stay
very
safe.
much. Yes, stay safe. Yes, correct. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you very much, Miss John and Miss Michelle, for this wonderful experience. Also, I have learned a lot, and thank you, Miss John, for agreeing to be one of the hosts for this patch session. I've also enjoyed it. I've enjoyed a lot and learned a lot from it as well. So, my final take on this APC talks session is that for every milestone it usually depends on how strong we want it. So Michelle's APC story is a concrete example of a perseverance. Her story has inspired us on how she has pulled off great time management to achieve her goals. Truly, nothing is impossible if we work hard for it, and of course, if we pray for it. And His will, His time. In His will, His time. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a safe weekend. Hope
Thank
to see you
you.
again in our next patch session. And thank you, everyone, and
Thank
God bless.
you.
See
God
you.
bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let us travel virtually to the land of the Queen as PICQS APC Talks channel or patch feature the APC story of our special guest, Engineer Michelle Miranda.
Join our hosts, AJ Paredes and Joan Urbuda from Singapore and Abu Dhabi, as we unravel how Michelle has nailed her APC together with her postgraduate diploma in surveying, while acing her degree in motherhood together with her recent promotion as Regional Director for Faithful and Gould in London. All these and more on Saturday, 26 June, 3 p.m. Manila time, 11 a.m. Dubai, 8 a.m. London. See you!